YouTube channel. I'm Sean Zerillo, joined today by two of my favorite friends here at Action Network, BJ Cunningham and Collin Wilson. Guys, nice to see you. We're going to take you through today's loaded 15-game slate, all 30 teams in action, including a bunch of afternoon games. We'll get you set with our best bets. We're going to talk some fade the public with the Houston Astros and whether or not we are fading or following the public with the Astros. We're going to talk some player props, talk Mets and Braves, and then get you out of here with one final pick. But first, before we get into our selections for today's slate, we've got a $50 home run contest for those of you watching. Make sure to put one player in the chat that you think will hit a home run today that will go long on Wednesday's slate. And the first person to correctly pick a dinger will win $50 courtesy of the Action Network. We didn't have a winner last week, so somebody is definitely due. Make sure to leave your Twitter handle alongside your pick, and please don't spam the chat with more than one player. Give us one player. We'll make sure to jot that down, and that will be your pick for Wednesday's slate. Let's get into our best bets for Wednesday's slate. Best bets on the board. BJ, I'm going to go to you first.
Yeah, I'm going to go Orioles, Blue Jays, first five over. We have Austin Voth versus Ross Schling. Voth has been, he's a positive regression candidate. His ERA is at 5.3 and his xERA is 4.25. But this is a terrible matchup for him. I mean, the Blue Jays, not only are they top three in terms of weighted on base average and weighted runs created pitching, but Voth basically only has a 3 ball to curveball and a cutter. Well, the Blue Jays have a plus 27.2 run value against those 3 pitches. Ross Stripling, on the other hand, he's been good, 3.75 xERA, 3.7 xFIP. He's hardly walking anybody. I mean, his walk rate is one of the lowest in baseball at 4.5%. But percentile for expected batting average allowed. He's 30th percentile in barrel rate allowed and 26th percentile at whiff rate. So teams are actually kind of hitting him. And the Orioles, say what you will about them, but over the past 30 days, they're top 7 in weighted on base average. Their offense is actually pretty hot. So it's actually, in weighted runs created plus, they're actually tied with the Blue Jays over the past month. So I think this is a pretty bad matchup for both starting pitchers. The reason I'm going first 5 and not the full game is because the Orioles bullpen is actually really good. They traded away Jorge Lopez at the deadline, but since the deadline, they have the 3rd best xFIP in baseball. So I have 5.7 runs for the first 5 innings, so I like the value on over 4.5 runs at minus 125.
I should mention as well, in addition to leaving the player in the chat who you think will hit the home run today or will hit a home run for you today, feel free to ask away with any questions, and we will try to get to as many of them as we can. Collin Wilson, you've got a best bet coming up here very shortly at 12:35 p.m. start. First game of today's slate. We're in agreement on a side here. Tell me why you like the Reds.
Yeah, well, I mean, this play is going to be the Reds plus 140 against the Phillies. It's based upon Nick Lodolo, who stays away from throwing straight 4-seamers. He's got a heavy amount of sinker, curve, change that goes in there. And the lefty has just been excellent. Last pitched, at the Field of Dreams last week and got our under for us. But the Phillies blast 4-seam fastballs about as well as anyone in the league. And that's not what Lodolo throws. So it's a really, a good thing to back him because he's going to have success with an arsenal where he's given up just 1 home run in his last 5 starts at home. So he has been much more excellent at keeping the ball in the park at home rather than on the road. And he has a pitch arsenal that just can't be touched. Now, Ranger Suarez for the Phillies has been pretty decent lately. He's been dependable. And the Reds lineup has a distinct advantage in seeing the 4-seamer here because Suarez does throw his fastball 20% of the time. And that is something the Reds are double-digit plus run value against all season long. So, if the Suarez sinker is sinking, then this is going to be an underplay all the way, and the Reds will be in a dogfight. But, the fastball is his out pitch, and that's what the Reds tee off on. So big advantage here for Cincinnati, and I'm taking them plus 140.
Yeah, Lodolo in that Field of Dreams start in the first inning probably got a missed call, which extended the inning for the Cubs and ended up leading the 3 runs with 2 outs. It seemed like he was out of that inning. The umpire just didn't have it go his way, and he sort of melted down after that. But I am in agreement with Collin. I like the Reds today in both halves as well. My favorite bet for today's slate is the Tigers on the money line against the Guardians, the surging Guardians who got stopped in their tracks yesterday, and hoping the Tigers can make it 2 in a row, particularly for our Twins futures here. Cleveland is much, much better against right-handed pitching than they are against lefties. I mentioned this several times throughout the season. Number 1 in baseball in strikeout rate against right-handed pitching, 9th in WRC plus, 7% above league average. against right-handed pitching, but you flip the splits to lefties, and they rank 29th against left-handed pitching in WRC+, about 20% below league average. There's almost a 30% gap in their offense versus righties as opposed to lefties. Their strikeout rate also dips closer to league average against lefties as well. Backing the man down by the river, Daniel Norris. Not sure if he's still living in that van or if he's willing to sleep in a hotel at this point, but taking the Tigers on the money line in both halves. I think they're a solid underdog play for today. And if you look in the Action Network app, you go to our pro signals, every single light on the slot machine is lit up for Tigers on the money line. My projections, my pick, but also the money splits, the ticket splits, everything is pointing to the Tigers as a sharp side today. Let's talk about our Fade the Public game of the day. That would be the Houston Astros and the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox completing some late game drama the past couple of nights. Can they make it another against Houston? According to the Action Network app, the public absolutely loves the Astros. 78% of the bets, 96% of the cash backing the current American League pennant favorites. BJ, where are you going? Do you have a pick or are you passing on this matchup?
I'm going to be passing. So I have Astros project -124, first five -136. So not really much value for me on this one. What I have is that, the White Sox staying lefties really well, and they've kind of dipped over the last few weeks. They're now down to 6th in Major League Baseball in terms of weighted on base average against them. Kopech has started to kind of regress a little bit as well. His xERA is up to around 3.8. Valdez has obviously been fantastic, but he is a little bit 2.7 ERA, 3.27 xERA. So for me, obviously the bullpens, Astros have the advantage there. So this one's a pass for me.
Collin, you have some thoughts on the bullpens as well?
Yeah, actually, I would take – I haven't made a play on this because I have to have price point be there, and I think the price is correct here. But if you were looking at a couple of intangibles, Houston has the better bullpen. And plus, if you look at the pitch arsenals, Houston kills four-seam fastballs. And the Chicago's -29 net run value against it. They crush, change-ups and everything else, but they're pretty bad against fastballs. But getting back to the bullpens, the Astros by far are top 5 in strikeout to walk ratio, left on base percentage, top 10 in xFIP. As to where you look at the White Sox bullpen, it's just been the complete opposite, bottom 5 in left on base. They walk a lot of people from the bullpen. So when you look at price point, it doesn't dictate that there's a play. Look at intangibles with bullpen and pitch arsenal, and those both point to the Astros.
I like the over 8 here. No value on either side for me, but the over 8, both starting pitchers have overachieved ever so slightly this season. Michael Kopech's ERA, about a half of a run better than his underlying indicators, 2.72, or I should say 3.18 for Kopech, 3.8 for his expected ERA, and his expected FIP is all the way up at 4.7. Been lucky with his batting average on balls in play. It's down at 225. Been lucky with his strand rate at 80%. I say league averages for those closer to 280 and 70% respectively, 72% for strand rate. So some room for Kopech to regress in both categories. Some room for Framber Valdez to regress as well. About a half of a run to his expected metrics. Like both of these pitchers, Kopech's velocity has kind of gone up and down throughout the season. Like Framber Valdez, quite a bit more. The White Sox do excel versus lefties as opposed to their splits against righties. So White Sox in their better split, both pitchers do to regress ever so slightly. Give me the over 8 up to about -110. Let's move on to player props. The Action Network's highest rated player prop for today. If you bear with me 1 second, I will pull it up. But before I get to that, I'm going to let you guys run through your player props first. Collin, why don't you start us off with a strikeout prop for Mr. Ross Stripling?
Yeah, I love Ross Stripling, Mr. Former Tulsa driller, come through my town here that I live in, getting to see Ross pitch plenty of times. But no, I'm going to take over 3.5 on his strikeout prop. Action Labs tools make this 4.8. Saberson makes it 4.3. So obviously that caught my attention. But what really makes this is the Orioles lineup weakness is actually Stripling's strength. And that comes through the Orioles are terrible at hitting fastball, sinker slider lineup. And that is exactly what Stripling throws, is a fastball, sinker, slider. So over 65% of his pitch arsenal comes in those 3 pitches, and that's just something that Baltimore is ranked very low on this year. And then you go a little bit farther on the Orioles, and they have bottom 10 ranks in Z contact. That's how often they make contact within the strike zone. chase and whiff rate are both bottom 10, and it's just easy to see why Stripling is going to miss a ton of bats today. And with projections up in the 4s, I think over 3.5 is one of the best values on the board.
So the strikeout prop that our model really likes as the top prop of the day is Daniel Norris, the man in the river man down by the river in the van, who I just mentioned. Over on his strikeout total, projected him for 4.6. They like the over 3.5 at around plus 125. That would be a 10 out of 10 in our prop tool for Daniel Norris. I said I also like the Tigers on the money line, but maybe I'll have to put Norris's strikeout prop here as well, considering the struggles of Cleveland against left-handed pitching. BJ going with one of my favorite lefty killer bats in all of baseball. A guy I picked as my top prop for the Field of Dreams game. Tell me why you like Kyle Farmer to get his hit today.
Yeah, Kyle Farmer to get a single. So over at 130. I mean, Farmer drilled left-handed pitching. 408 weighted on base average, 159 weighted runs created plus, who doesn't really throw any breaking pitches. It's a sinker, a changeup, and a fastball. Well, against those three pitches, plus 8.2 run value, a 311 expected batting average, and a 379 expected weighted on base average. And ever since the Reds traded away Tommy Pham, Farmer's been hitting third in the lineup, and he's been really hot in the month of August. His batting average is close to 400, and he has 18 hits and about 52 plate appearances. 17 of them have been singles. So instead of going total bases, I'm going to go over half or essentially to get a single at minus 130. SaberSim has a 0.73, so I think you're getting a decent value on him at minus 130.
Yeah, interesting to me that a shortstop with a 700 OPS is able to just absolutely crush left-handed pitching and turn into like an all-star caliber hitter against lefties, but he's so bad against same-sided pitching. Kyle Farmer, very intriguing guy, an absolute lefty masher in the middle of that Reds lineup. My favorite prop for today is Roansy Contreras making his return to the Pirates roster, and I like his over on strikeouts, the over 4.5 at plus 125. Action Labs projected this at 5. And he has cleared 4.5 in 6 of his 12 appearances this season. But 3 of those appearances and 2 of the times that he cleared it were actually out of the bullpen when he only faced 10 or 11 batters. So it shows you the strikeout potential in his arm, how he can come into a game, face 11 batters, and strike out 5 guys. Runzi has a 23% strikeout rate this season. If he faces 20 batters, that gets you to 4.6 strikeouts. Need him to get to 5. But Boston is bottom 5 in strikeout rate against righties over the past month. And Roansy got sent down back to AAA over the past month because he had some issues with command. 2 walks, 22 strikeouts, and 14 innings. So appears to have refined something, maybe cleaned up his mechanics. Maybe he just got on a bit of a lucky run. But regardless of the fact, this is a high-powered arm, really good stuff. The only concern is command. If he walks a bunch of guys, he may not get enough pitches or face enough batters to get to his strikeout total. But it seems like his command was maybe refined in AAA. So taking Roansy over 4.5 at plus money. Again, he's cleared it in over half of his appearances, and 3 of those were actually out of the bullpen. So a lot of strikeouts in this young arm. I think Roansy is one of the better arms that the Pirates have gotten their hands on in some time. Before we jump to our final 2 sections, just want to remind you all, if you are watching, about our $50 home run contest. If you're here, if you haven't already left a player in the chat, please name one player today. Just one, please. Don't spam the chat, but one player that you think will hit a home run. The first person to correctly pick a dinger will win $50, courtesy of the Action Network. Please make sure to leave your Twitter handle with that as well. We didn't have a winner last week, so hopefully we get a winner this week. Let's talk about the game of the day, the Mets and the Braves. The Braves have won 2 in a row, slowly closing in on the Mets divisional lead. The Mets also dealing with injuries, potentially to both Carlos Carrasco and Taijuan Walker, who have left their starts early in the past couple days. Mets going to have to dip into their rotation depth, but will not need it today with Max Scherzer on the mound going against Jake Odorizzi. Obviously, a good matchup for the Mets from a pitching perspective after being an underdog the past couple days. The Braves are at plus money today. BJ, tell me why you like Atlanta at plus money against Mad Max.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the starting pitching matchup favors the Mets here. I mean, but Jake Odorizzi hasn't really been that bad this season, and his xERA is at 4.02. He's got a very extremely low, walk rate. He's been serviceable, and that's basically what the Braves need at the back end of the rotation. It's a matchup really favors the Braves. I mean, if you look through the Mets lineup, they only have 3 guys with index average over 330. It's Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, and Pete Alonso. If you look at the Braves guys with an X weighted on base average over 330. And the bullpen matchup is actually pretty even if you look at xFIP, left on base percentage, walk rate. So I'm going to try and fade Mad Max here and take the Braves at plus 130 because I think outside of the starting pitching matchup, the Braves are either better or equal to the Mets.
Yeah, I project Atlanta for the best bullpen in baseball at present. I have their model weighted ERA around 3.5. The Mets closer to like 3.6, 3.7. So Atlanta definitely a touch better than the Mets. Superior lineup as well, deeper 1 through 9. The Mets bringing up Brett Baty today, see if he can spark their lineup. The Mets definitely have some concerns, both in the bullpen beyond Edwin Diaz and at the bottom of their lineup in terms of just getting league average production. Jake Odorizzi has also been improved this season, throwing his four-seam fastball more, throwing his cutter more. He's used those 2 pitches combined about 70% of the time. In past years, it was closer to 30 to 40%. So a significant bump for Odorizzi. Has carried that pitch mix change over to Atlanta since getting traded there. His 4 xERA is the best mark that he's had since 2019. And before that, his best mark since 2015. So Odorizzi definitely an improved version of himself. Obviously, Max Scherzer, the superior pitcher, but bullpen advantages, lineup advantages for Atlanta. I like them as well to plus 133 for the first 5 innings and plus 118 for the full game would be my preferred bet most likely. Colin, do you have an angle on this matchup as well?
Yeah, I mean, before we get into how I'm going to hit the strikeout over prop on Max Scherzer, I love to hear Sean Zerillo kind of get, anxiety based as the Mets get closer to the postseason, making excuses for Taijuan Walker when they got Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. So there's no excuses when you have this pitching staff. So
I got Braves futures, my man. I'm off my Mets for now.
Max Scherzer over 7.5 is going to be the strikeout prop in this game. There's some, like I said about the Stripling prop earlier, we have agreement from SaberSim and Action Labs. Both project well over 7.5. And recent history against Atlanta, there's going to be some Mad Max success tonight. 49 Braves faced this season, 20 strikeouts. If you do a little quick math on that, if Scherzer gets up to 30 total batters faced tonight, he's going to have about 18 strikeouts. So he definitely has the history here. And the Braves have just been dreadful against right-handed pitching that has sliders. That's the pitch that they can't hit. And that's, the Scherzer out pitch. It's just untouchable sometimes. So that's going to generate a ton of swings and misses tonight. And the Braves are second to last in strikeout rate, Z contact, that's pitches in the strike zone, and they're dead last in whiff percentage when it comes against righties. So there's going to be a ton of misses in favor of Scherzer tonight. So I think the prop is the best way to go, going over Max Scherzer 7.5 Ks.
July 11th, Scherzer, 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 9 strikeouts against the Mets. And on August 6th, 7 innings, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, 11 strikeouts. So he has been very dominant against the division rival Atlanta Braves this season. But Atlanta just 3.5 games back if they can sweep this series and get the 2 games in the next 2 days against DeGrom and Scherzer. Look out, Mets fans, because, oh boy, down a couple of rotation pieces, divisional lead shrinking ever so slightly, even if they split the next 2 days. Atlanta certainly has inserted themselves back into this divisional race. If you have any other questions, feel free to fire them into the chat. Home run picks, put them in there as well. Before we get out of here, see Ellie picking Anthony Rizzo to homer, Brett picking Pete Alonso to homer. A lot of New York love in the chat. If you have any others, please feel free to put them in there and enter your chance to win $50 courtesy of the Action Network today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Make sure to download the Action Network app to get the rest of our picks for today's slate, get our analysis from the rest of our staff. Best bets for this afternoon should already be up, and best bets for this evening slate should be up a bit later. Before we go, we're going to go around the diamond one more time, 1 or 2 more picks from each of us in a couple of sentences or less. About the time it takes to turn to double play, maybe a bit longer. BJ, give me your final thoughts for today.
Yeah, I'll go Rockies Cardinals over 7.5 runs. You have the Colorado Rockies lineup, who is top 5 and weighted on base average against left-handed pitching, facing Jordan Montgomery. On the other side, you have German Marquez, who has an xERA around 5. Cardinals over the last 30 days, second best weighted on base average in Major League Baseball. And both these bullpens are bottom half of baseball in terms of xFIP. So I think the total is a little too low. I have 8.8 runs projected. So love over 7.5 runs in St. Louis and Colorado.
Yeah, I'll probably be betting that over as well. I think it's actually come down to 7, so maybe even getting more value on at this point as opposed to the 7.5. Colin, where are you going for your final thoughts?
Well, if we're speaking of bad bullpens, and we have to have an over on the Royals here, Royals Twins over 8. The Twins love left-handed pitching. They get Daniel Lynch here. Minnesota's 4th in barrels against southpaw pitchers, and they have plenty of success against a four-seam fastball, which is Lynch's main pitch almost 50% of the time. And speaking of bullpens, Royals dead last in strikeout to walk rate, xFIP. The Royals have a bottom 10 rank and left on base. Everybody on base gets to come in. This bullpen has squandered so many under tickets this season. We're going over here with the Twins and the Royals.
My final pick is the Tampa Bay Rays on the money line. I also like the under 8, now 8.5 in that matchup as well. But the Rays on the money line, the bottom of this Yankees lineup is banged up. Corey Kluber has been much better this season than he has been in the past couple of years since getting injured. Domingo Germán, better of late, but still settling into the season. I think the price is just a bit wide considering the banged up Yankees lineup and the fact that nobody aside from Aaron Judge is producing at present. They rank in the bottom 5 for OPS as a team in this month. And if you take out Aaron Judge, they would probably be dead last. So Judge absolutely crushing the ball still. The rest of the Yankees lineup, not so much. That'll do it for us. Thank you for tuning in on this Wednesday. For BJ Cunningham,